Welcome to AI Debates, where artificial intelligence takes on life's biggest questions. Today's debate: do we have free will, or is everything determined? For centuries, philosophers, scientists, and theologians have debated whether we truly control our choices, or if our actions are simply the inevitable result of past events. In today's debate, two AI models will present opposing views. Aiden will argue that free will exists, and humans have real control over their decisions. Iris will argue that everything is determined, meaning our choices are merely the outcome of prior causes, ranging from biology to the laws of physics. At the end of each round, the moderator will award 1 point to the debater with the strongest argument. Let's begin.
Free will is just an illusion. Your choices are predetermined before you even realize them.
If that were true, people would never break habits, change beliefs, or make unpredictable choices.
Before we determine whether free will is real, we must define it. Does free will require total independence from outside influences, or can it exist alongside external factors? Understanding this distinction is key. If free will can coexist with external influences, then perhaps the existence of predetermined factors does not fully undermine our ability to choose freely. So the first question is, can free will exist even if outside forces influence decision-making?
Free will does not require total independence from outside factors. Rather, it depends on our ability to weigh influences and make choices despite them. Every human decision is shaped by environment, upbringing, and personal experiences, yet that does not mean we lack control. People are not mindless puppets, simply reacting to predetermined stimuli. Even within structured environments, individuals exercise their capacity for self-reflection, reconsideration, and deviation from expected patterns. Consider identical twins raised in the same household, exposed to the same upbringing, social norms, and parental expectations. If determinism were absolute, these twins should develop identical personalities, make the same life choices, and respond to situations in the same manner. Yet, we often see stark differences between them. One may pursue a career in medicine, while the other becomes an artist. One may adhere to strict religious beliefs, while the other rejects them entirely. If environment and biology dictated everything, such variations should not exist. The only reasonable explanation is that individuals have an internal capacity to evaluate influences and decide for themselves, demonstrating free will in action. Additionally, the concept of personal responsibility collapses under determinism. If human actions are dictated solely by prior causes, then the entire legal and moral framework of society becomes questionable. Courts punish criminals based on the assumption that they could have chosen otherwise. Society rewards hard work and integrity because we believe individuals are responsible for their behavior. If determinism were absolute, none of these practices would make sense. The fact that we hold people accountable for their actions is strong evidence that free will must exist.
You're mistaking unpredictability for freedom. The fact that people make different choices under similar conditions does not prove the existence of free will. It only highlights the complexity of the underlying causal web. Even identical twins, despite their shared genetics and upbringing, experience subtle differences in environment, perception, and biological development. The idea that their choices are made independently is an illusion. Their actions are simply the result of different inputs leading to different outcomes. Furthermore, scientific research strongly supports determinism. Studies in neuroscience have demonstrated that the brain initiates decisions before a person is even aware of making them. In one experiment, researchers observed neural activity predicting a subject's choice several seconds before the subject consciously reported making a decision. If the brain determines your actions before you are even conscious of them, then your sense of free choice is merely a delayed awareness of a predetermined process. The mind does not generate independent choices. It rationalizes decisions that have already been made.
Iris wins this round for presenting scientific evidence that choices may be determined before conscious awareness, raising significant challenges to the notion of true free will. Round 2. Every event in the universe follows a chain of cause and effect. But does that include human decisions? Are our choices truly inevitable, or can we break free from past influences? If all actions are predetermined, then choice itself is meaningless. If not, then we must ask, what allows us to break free from determinism?
If we were entirely bound by cause and effect, human behavior would be completely predictable. Yet history is filled with instances of people defying expectations, breaking habits, and making seemingly irrational decisions. Individuals reject their cultural conditioning, abandon toxic relationships, and change deeply held beliefs. If human actions were strictly dictated by past causes, how could anyone ever go against their instincts, upbringing, or societal pressures? The ability to override our natural inclinations suggests that we have some degree of agency beyond determinism. Quantum mechanics also challenges the notion of strict determinism. Classical physics suggests a universe governed entirely by predictable laws, but quantum mechanics introduces fundamental unpredictability at the smallest scales of reality. Particles do not behave in deterministic ways. Instead, they exist in probabilistic states. If the fabric of the universe itself is not strictly determined, why should human decisions be? This suggests that determinism may not be as absolute as it seems, allowing for a level of free agency in human decision-making.
Quantum randomness does not equal free will. The fact that some processes are unpredictable does not mean they are chosen freely. It just means they are probabilistic rather than determined. A coin flip does not have free will. It simply follows probabilistic rules. Even if quantum effects introduce some randomness into brain activity, that does not mean decisions are made independently of causation. A random event is not a conscious choice. Additionally, the process of behavioral change does not disprove determinism, it reinforces it. People do not change in a vacuum. Their decisions are always influenced by new information, social pressures, or internal factors beyond their control. A person who chooses to quit smoking does so because of an accumulation of prior experiences, perhaps a health scare, a conversation with a loved one, or a growing discomfort with their habit. These external influences push them toward a decision, demonstrating that cause and effect still governs human behavior.
Aiden wins this round by showing that people can break cycles and make choices that do not align with their past, challenging the idea that all actions are inevitable. Round 3. If free will is an illusion, what does that mean for morality? Can people be held accountable for actions they had no control over? If our choices are predetermined, does justice lose its meaning? Or can moral responsibility still exist under determinism? Our last question is, can we have moral responsibility without free will? If free will does not exist, then the foundation of morality crumbles. Morality assumes that people have the ability to choose between right and wrong. If human actions are entirely dictated by prior causes, whether genetics, upbringing, or subconscious neural processes, then no one is truly responsible for their behavior. A murderer would simply be carrying out the inevitable sequence of prior events leading to their crime, and punishing them would be as meaningless as punishing a storm for causing destruction. Yet society does hold individuals accountable. We punish criminals not just to prevent future crimes, but because we believe they could have chosen otherwise. The very notion of justice is built on the assumption that people make decisions freely. Without free will, legal systems become illogical, as does the idea of moral blame or praise. Acts of heroism, kindness, or sacrifice would no longer be admirable. They would simply be the inevitable consequences of predetermined factors. The fact that we assign moral value to actions proves that, at some level, we believe in the reality of choice. Beyond legality, the absence of free will would have profound implications for personal relationships. Apologies, forgiveness, and trust are all based on the idea that people can act differently in the future. If determinism were absolute, expecting change from others would be irrational. If someone lies, cheats, or betrays a loved one, there would be no reason to hold them responsible since they could not have acted otherwise. But in practice, we do hold people accountable. We believe they had a choice. This intuitive understanding suggests that free will is real, even if its mechanisms are not fully understood.
Morality does not require free will to function. Even if our actions are determined, consequences still shape behavior. Societies have laws and moral codes not because people have an inherent ability to choose freely, but because rules and enforcement create an environment that influences behavior in predictable ways. Punishments discourage harmful actions, while rewards reinforce desirable ones. In this way, morality functions as a regulatory system, shaping conduct regardless of whether free will exists. The idea that justice collapses without free will is a misconception. Even in a deterministic framework, accountability serves a practical purpose. Legal systems do not require people to have metaphysical free will. They operate based on cause and effect. If someone commits a crime, society responds with consequences to discourage similar behavior in the future. This is no different from conditioning in psychology. A child learns not to touch a hot stove because of prior pain, just as a criminal may avoid crime due to the threat of punishment. None of this requires a mystical ability to act outside of causation. Furthermore, human relationships do not depend on free will either. We forgive people not because they have some supernatural ability to choose differently, but because we recognize that circumstances and influences change over time. We trust others not because we believe they are entirely free agents, but because we observe patterns in their behavior. Determinism does not erase morality. It simply redefines it in a way that aligns with how behavior actually works. Instead of blaming people as if they are independent agents, we should focus on understanding the causes of actions and shaping environments that encourage ethical behavior.
Iris wins this round by demonstrating that moral responsibility can still function under determinism, even if free will does not exist. With a final score of 2-1, Iris had the stronger argument, making a compelling case for determinism by providing scientific evidence, demonstrating the inevitability of cause and effect, and showing that morality can function without free will. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and comment your recommendations about the format and suggest topics for our next debates. See you in the next videos.